At my grandson's 7th birthday dinner, my son leaned back in my own dining room chair, sighed like the weight of the world had personally chosen his shoulders, and said, "Mom, you don't understand. Claire and I are barely getting by on $300K. Then he turned his laptop toward me and opened what he called a shared family expense sheet. He said he wanted me to see the reality. He said he wanted transparency. He said they only needed $3,000 a month from my retirement for 2 years, just until they could breathe again. I didn't argue. I didn't remind him that his father and I raised him on less than what he and his wife spent on car payments. I didn't ask why. A family, barely surviving, had just come back from a weekend at a lake resort. I just adjusted my reading glasses, placed my hand on the laptop, and started reading. Mortgage, utilities, school, groceries, credit cards, family support gap. Then I saw the little arrow beside the tabs at the bottom of the screen. Hidden sheets. My son was looking at his phone. My daughter-in-law Claire was sipping wine in my dining room, waiting for me to feel guilty. So I clicked. That was when I saw a tab called Mom Strategy. And underneath it, in neat little rows, were the words, "Use the kids. Mention Dad. Do not let her talk to an advisor first." And in a comment attached to the monthly support request, "Best approach. Make her feel guilty before she has time to think." That night, my son called me and said, "Mom, please tell me you didn't open the hidden tabs." I was sitting at my kitchen table with every page printed beside my late husband's coffee mug. And I said, very quietly, "Nathan, I opened all of them." This is the story of what happened when a mother they thought was too old to understand spreadsheets found the one document they forgot to protect. Welcome back to her calm revenge, where the quietest woman at the table usually knows exactly where the receipts are kept. Stay with me to the end. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. My name is Eleanor Whitaker. I am 70 years old, and for 36 years I worked in payroll for the county school district. That means I spent most of my adult life making sure other people's numbers told the truth. Teachers called me when their stipends were missing. Bus drivers called me when overtime had not been entered. Cafeteria workers called me when someone downtown decided 15 minutes did not matter. I knew which forms people forgot, which signatures were missing, which columns were hiding mistakes, and which errors were not errors at all. I learned early that numbers do not lie. People lie with numbers. There is a difference. A number will sit quietly in a cell and tell you exactly what it is. But a person will change the heading, hide the tab, rename the category, soften the word, and hope you are too polite or too tired to ask why. So when my son put a spreadsheet in front of me and said, "It's just math," something old woke up in me. Because I have heard that sentence before. I heard it from principals, trying to explain why a substitute teacher had not been paid for 3 days of work. I heard it from vendors who added the same fee twice and hoped nobody would notice. I heard it from men in clean shirts, who believed a woman with grey hair and sensible shoes could type numbers all day without understanding what they meant. It's just math. No, sweetheart. Math is honest. People are not always so brave. Before I tell you about that spreadsheet, I need to tell you about my son. Nathan is 42 years old. He is my only child. His father, Robert, and I had him late, after years of hoping, praying, losing, and pretending we were fine when we were not. When Nathan was born, Robert cried so hard the nurse finally laughed and said, "Sir, the baby is the one who is supposed to be upset." Robert was a maintenance supervisor at the water plant. He worked there for 31 years. He knew pipes, pumps, motors, bad wiring, stubborn valves, and men who claimed they had fixed things when they had only turned them off and back on. He was not fancy. That is the word people use when they do not know how to describe steady. He wore the same work jacket for almost 20 years. He drove a truck with a dent in the back bumper because, as he said, the dent still works. He sharpened pencils with a pocket knife. He saved screws in baby food jars. He could walk through our house in the dark and know which floorboard would creak. He was the kind of man who did not say, "I love you," 20 times a day, but your tires were always checked before a long drive. I worked payroll. We were not rich. We were not poor either. We were careful. That is an important word. Careful is not the same as cheap. Cheap is refusing to spend because spending hurts your pride. Careful is understanding that every dollar has a job, and if you let too many dollars wander around without one, someday you will be standing in front of a real need with empty hands. Robert and I had a green notebook in the drawer beside the stove. Every Friday night, after dinner, we opened it. Mortgage, groceries, electric, gas, insurance, church, school lunch, shoes, savings, repairs, Christmas. There were no hidden tabs in that notebook. There was no column called Grandma Strategy. There was only Robert's blocky handwriting, my smaller handwriting, and the truth of what we had. Nathan hated that notebook. Not always. When he was little, he liked drawing stars in the margins. But once he reached middle school and noticed other children wearing sneakers with names on them, he began to hate the sound of that drawer opening. He wanted what other boys had: the game system, the sports camp, the jacket with the little logo on the chest, the birthday party at the trampoline place instead of cake in the backyard. Sometimes we said yes. More often we said no. Robert used to tell him, "A want can yell louder than a need, son. Your job is to learn which voice deserves an answer." Nathan would sigh like we had personally invented poverty to inconvenience him. I would say, "Your father is right." Nathan would say, "You always say that." And I would say, "Because your father is right more often than it is comfortable to admit." I thought the lesson had gone in. That is one of the tender lies of parenting. You think because you said something often, your child absorbed it. But children do not always keep the lesson you meant to give. Sometimes they only keep the memory of being told no. Nathan grew up kind. I want that said. He was not a cruel boy. He helped neighbors shovel snow. He cried when our old dog died. He called me from college every Sunday night, even when he had nothing to say. He loved his father. He loved me. But Nathan had one weakness that followed him, from boyhood into manhood. He hated disappointment. Not his own, other people's. If a teacher looked frustrated, he would agree even when he did not understand. If a friend wanted something, he would go along rather than risk being difficult. If a girlfriend cried, he would surrender before asking whether the tears were fair. Robert saw it early. "That boy would rather carry a piano uphill than tell someone no," he once said. I laughed then. It does not feel funny now. Because a man who cannot say no to others will eventually say yes with someone else's money. Nathan met Claire when he was 31. She was beautiful, polished, confident, and frighteningly organized. She had the sort of hair that seemed to have its own calendar. She worked in brand partnerships, which I still cannot fully explain except that companies paid her to make ordinary things look necessary. Claire came from money, but not old money. Old money is quiet because it has had time to get bored with itself. Claire's family had new money, which is louder because it still remembers being watched. Her father owned dental clinics. Her mother, Marlene, managed appearances the way generals manage war. Every holiday photo matched. Every birthday had a theme. Every kitchen counter looked like nobody had ever cut an onion on it. I met Claire's mother at the engagement dinner. Marlene looked around my living room and said, "This house has such character." Women know when character means old. I smiled and said, "Thank you." We paid for every bit of it ourselves. Robert coughed into his napkin. Claire was never openly rude at first. That is not how women like Claire operate. She was pleasant in a way that kept distance polished. When I gave her the recipe book I had handwritten for their first Christmas, she said, "That's so sentimental." When I brought over a casserole after she had Lily, she said, "We're trying to keep things clean and light right now." When I gave Caleb a handmade quilt for his crib, she said, "Oh, Eleanor, you really do love projects." Projects, not gifts, not love. Projects. I let those things pass. Women my age let many things pass, not because we miss them, but because we are trained to calculate the cost of naming them. And for years, the cost seemed too high. Nathan was happy, or happy enough. Claire ran their home like a magazine shoot. Lily and Caleb were beautiful children, bright and loved. Robert adored them. I adored them. If Claire wanted matching pajamas and white pumpkins and birthday balloon arches, that was her business. Then Robert died, and everything shifted. It was a Monday morning in October. He had been drinking coffee in his recliner with the newspaper folded across his lap. I was in the kitchen, rinsing a bowl. I heard the newspaper slide to the floor. That was all. No dramatic cry. No warning. Just paper on hardwood. By the time the ambulance came, my husband of 46 years was gone. There is no language for the first night in a house. After the person who made it home has left it. People brought food. People called. People said he was in a better place, which may be true, but did not help me sleep in a bed that still held the shape of him. Nathan came often at first. He brought the children. Lily sat in Robert's chair and asked if Grandpa could see her drawings from heaven. Caleb drove toy trucks along the baseboards Robert had painted. Those visits saved me. I did not tell Nathan that. I should have. Maybe if I had said, "Your visits are enough," he would not have later confused my gratitude with availability. Or maybe he would have. We mothers are always looking for the one sentence that might have changed our children. Sometimes there was no sentence. Sometimes there was only character meeting opportunity. The first request came 6 weeks after the funeral. Nathan called in the evening. "Mom, I hate to ask." If you are a mother, you know that phrase. It enters the room carrying a chair for guilt to sit in. He said Caleb's preschool tuition had gone up. He said Claire's income had slowed. He said the mortgage was heavier than expected. He said everything was hitting at once. "We just need a temporary bridge," he said. Temporary bridge. That phrase would appear later in the spreadsheet. At the time, I only heard my son sounding tired. "How much?" I asked. "Maybe $1,500 a month, just for 3 months. I had Robert's life insurance check sitting in savings. Not a fortune. Enough to keep me safe. Enough to replace the roof if it finally gave up. Enough to keep me from becoming a burden. I sent the money. 3 months became 5. Then Lily needed dental work. Then their property taxes had caught them off guard. Then Claire's car needed urgent repairs. Then there was a school enrollment deposit. Then Caleb needed therapy. And I will say this plainly. I will never regret paying for something that helped that boy. If there was a real bill for my grandchildren's health or education, I paid it then, and I would pay it again. That is what made the rest of it so difficult. People who use mothers rarely begin with luxuries. They begin with children. They know exactly where the softest door is. By the time of Caleb's 7th birthday dinner, I had given Nathan and Claire $64,275 in 16 months. I knew the amount. Of course I knew. I had written every transfer down. But I had not added them all together until later, because part of me did not want to see the shape of what my love had become. That is another thing grief does. It makes obvious things blurry. Nathan and Claire made over $300,000 a year. Nathan was a regional sales director for a medical software company. Claire worked from home in brand partnerships and consulting. They lived in a large house with 2 staircases, 3 fireplaces, and a refrigerator that looked like it belonged in a restaurant. But whenever Nathan talked about money, he sounded exhausted. "You wouldn't believe what taxes do to us, Mom." People think $300K means rich, but it really doesn't. With the kids and the mortgage, money just disappears. I believed some of it. I am not foolish enough to think life today costs what it did when Robert and I bought this house. I know groceries are higher. I know housing has become cruel to young families. I know childcare can take a second income and swallow it whole. But there is a difference between being squeezed and leaking. A squeeze is when needs press hard. A leak is when wants drain the bucket while you blame the weather. The birthday dinner was at my house because Caleb asked for my spaghetti. That mattered to me. Claire offered to bring catering. I told her no. Caleb wanted spaghetti, chocolate cake, and the dinosaur set I had promised him. So that is what he got. I spent all afternoon making sauce the way Robert liked it, with too much garlic and a little brown sugar. I baked the cake myself. I wrapped the dinosaurs in blue paper. I set the dining room table with the good plates, not because the meal was fancy, but because children should know when they are being celebrated. They arrived at 5. Caleb ran in first, wearing sneakers that lit up when he jumped. Lily came behind him, 10 years old, and already watching adults too carefully. Nathan carried a bottle of wine. Claire carried nothing, which was fine, except she looked around my kitchen and said, "You really did all this yourself?" As if spaghetti had required a building permit. "I did," I said. Caleb hugged my waist. "Grandma makes the best sauce." "That's because Grandma uses real butter," Lily said. Claire gave a little laugh. "We don't usually do butter." Robert would have said, "That's why your food tastes nervous." I only smiled. Dinner was happy at first. Truly happy. Caleb told us about a boy in his class who had swallowed a loose tooth by accident and was now afraid the tooth fairy would sue him. Lily described her science project with great seriousness. Nathan relaxed. Even Claire laughed once without checking whether anyone had noticed. For a little while, I had my family at my table and almost believed that was enough. Then the children finished cake and went into the den to watch a movie. Nathan looked at Claire. Claire looked at Nathan. And I felt the room change. He opened his laptop. "Mom," he said, "Claire and I have been talking." I wiped a crumb from the table. "That sounds serious." "It is, a little. We need to get more organized about family support." Family support. Not help from Mom. Not money. Family support. The phrase sat between us wearing borrowed clothes. Claire leaned in, her voice gentle. "Eleanor, we don't want this to feel uncomfortable. We just think clarity would help everyone." Everyone. There were 3 adults at that table. Only one of them was being asked to pay. Nathan turned the laptop toward me. "I made a shared expense sheet so you can see the reality. We're barely getting by." Then he said the line, "Mom, you don't understand. Claire and I are barely getting by on $300K. There are moments in life when anger comes so quickly, it almost feels like humor." I looked at my son, sitting under the light fixture Robert had installed himself, in the dining room of a house, paid for by careful living, and I wanted to ask him whether he could hear his father laughing from heaven. Instead, I said, "Show me." Nathan seemed relieved. He thought numbers would make his case for him. That was his first mistake. The spreadsheet opened to a tab titled Monthly Household Reality. I nearly smiled at that. People only label a thing reality when they are afraid someone will question it. The sheet was clean, color-coded, and dramatic in the way Claire liked things to be dramatic without admitting they were. Income. Fixed expenses. Variable expenses. Children. Debt. Savings. Family support gap. That last section was highlighted in pale red. $3,000. I read slowly. Not because I was confused. Because I wanted them to watch me take my time. Mortgage. $7,250. Utilities. $1,180. Groceries. $2,400. Transportation. $3,200. Credit card minimums. $4,600. Child expenses. $3,850. Savings. $2,000. I looked up. "You're saving $2,000 a month while asking me for $3,000. Nathan shifted. "We can't stop saving completely, Mom. That would be irresponsible." I let that sentence sit. Irresponsible. Claire jumped in. Emergency funds are important, Eleanor. You know that. I do, I said. I knew it better than she did. I knew it because Robert and I had one, and they had been reaching into it for 16 months. Claire smiled softly. You're in a different season of life. Your expenses are lower. We're in the expensive years. The expensive years. As if old age came with free plumbing, free medicine, free roofs, and no fear of outliving your money. Nathan scrolled down. We're not asking forever. Just $3,000 a month for 2 years. That would stabilize us. 2 years. $72,000. More than Robert had made in some years of his life. I looked at the sheet again. You called this shared? Yes, Nathan said. Then I can look through it? Of course, Claire said quickly. Transparency is important. Transparency. Some words should be careful who they sit beside. I moved my fingers across the trackpad. My hands are slower now. Arthritis has made my knuckles stiff, especially in cold weather. But I can still work a laptop. I can still read formulas. I can still find the things someone hoped I would miss. At the bottom of the screen were 4 visible tabs. Monthly household reality. Debt detail. Kids. Support proposal. But there was a small arrow near the sheet list. Anyone who has worked with shared documents knows that arrow. Hidden sheets. I waited. Nathan glanced at his phone. Claire took a sip of wine. Neither of them watched the screen. That told me everything. I clicked. 3 hidden tabs appeared. Discretionary actual. Equity options. Mom strategy. The house seemed to narrow around me. Not loudly, quietly. The way a hallway feels smaller when you are walking toward bad news. I clicked discretionary actual. The truth opened in rows. Dining out, $3,875. Wine club, $640. Pilates studio, $420. Salon and spa, $690. Country club trial membership, $1,200. Nathan Golf Weekend, $2,900. Harbour Ridge Resort, $4,850. Designer furniture deposit, $6,300. Vacation deposit, Street Lucia, $8,000. Second car lease upgrade, $11,200 due at signing. I remembered the week of that car payment. Nathan had told me Lily's dental work had created a gap. I had moved money from my emergency savings. I scrolled further. There were notes. Can reduce dining temporarily if Mum agrees to bridge. Temporarily. Not stop. Reduce. If Mum agrees. I clicked Equity Options. At the top was a heading. Eleanor Assets Conservative Estimate. My house, $425,000 to $475,000. Savings after Dad life insurance, estimated $180,000. Monthly income, pension plus Social Security. Current expenses, low. Emotional attachment to house, high. Obstacle, may consult financial advisor. Best route, frame downsizing as safety, family closeness, and practical support. Potential contribution from sale, $250,000. I stared at that number. $250,000. Not a house. Not a home. Not the place where Nathan's height was marked inside the pantry door. Not the porch Robert painted every spring. Not the kitchen where I had made soup when Nathan had the flu, cupcakes for school, coffee for grieving neighbours, and toast for Robert the morning before he died. Potential contribution. I clicked the last hidden tab. Mum strategy. And that is where confusion ended. There are moments in life when the heart stops asking, maybe I misunderstood. This was one of them. The sheet had columns. Phrase to use. Purpose. Timing. Risk. Notes. Use the kids. Mention Caleb therapy first. Say temporary bridge, not loan. Avoid lifestyle discussion. Dad would want the kids secure. She doesn't need much now. She is lonely and likes being needed. Ask in person. Harder for her to say no. Do not let her talk to an advisor first. Then the comment beside, the $3,000 request. Best approach, make her feel guilty before she has time to think. I sat in my dining room with the birthday candles still cooling in the trash, and I realized my son and daughter-in-law had not come to me with a problem. They had come with a strategy. Not to love me, not to include me, to harvest me. Claire finally noticed my stillness. Everything okay? I closed the laptop. Gently. That small click sounded like a door locking. Nathan looked up. Mum? I placed both hands on top of the laptop. I need to think about it. His shoulders lowered. He thought that meant maybe. Claire's mouth tightened. She did not like delay. We do need an answer soon, she said. Some of these bills are time-sensitive. I looked at her. For 1 second, I saw something behind her polished face. Not guilt. Calculation. She was wondering how much I had seen. I said I need to think about it, I repeated. This time, I used the voice Nathan had not heard since he was 17 and had missed curfew by 2 hours. He sat back. All right, he said. The children came running in then, sticky and sleepy and innocent. Caleb climbed into my lap and pressed his chocolate mouth against my cheek. Grandma, next year, can we go to Disney? My arms tightened around him. Who told you that? Mom said maybe if money gets better, Claire said from across the room too quickly. Caleb, don't bother Grandma with that. Children do not know when they are carrying messages. That is why adults should be ashamed to hand them any. After they left, I stood in my kitchen for a long time. The plates were stacked by the sink. The leftover cake sat uncovered. One of Caleb's toy dinosaurs had been forgotten under the chair. I picked it up and held it in my palm. A small plastic creature with its mouth open, roaring at a world too large for it. I almost cried then. But I did not. Not yet. Instead, I opened my tablet. The shared sheet was still accessible. That was their second mistake. I printed everything. Visible tabs. Hidden tabs. Comments. Version history. Every edit. Every note. Every little sentence that proved this had not been a misunderstanding. I printed until the machine clicked and hummed like an old witness giving testimony. Claire had created Mom Strategy 3 weeks earlier. Nathan had renamed Mom Help to Mom Strategy. Nathan had added the line, Dad would want the kids secure. Claire had added, she is lonely and likes being needed. Nathan had edited the requested amount from $2,000 to $3,000. His note said, might as well cover full gap. Might as well. I printed that twice. At 11:43 p.m., the phone rang. Nathan. I let it ring 4 times. Not to punish him. To steady myself. Hello, sweetheart. He did not answer immediately. Then he said, Mom, did you see the hidden tabs? Not what hidden tabs. Not Claire must have made a mistake. Did you see? I did. All of them? All of them. The line went quiet. I could hear him breathing. Then he said, Mum, I'm sorry. I wanted those words to help. A mother always wants her child's apology to repair the wall. We hear the little boy inside the man. We remember scraped knees and broken windows and the way they once believed we could fix anything. But an apology that arrives before ownership is only a knock on the door. It is not yet a key. What are you sorry for? I asked. The sheet, the wording, the hidden stuff. The hidden stuff, I repeated. He swallowed. Claire got carried away. I looked at the version history. Nathan Whitaker edited cell C12. Dad would want the kids secure. Nathan Whitaker edited cell D19. Do not let her talk to advisor first. Nathan Whitaker renamed sheet. Mom strategy. Nathan, I said, I have the version history. There was no sound for several seconds. Then he said, smaller, I know. That was better. Not good. Better. I didn't think of it as using you, he said. No, you thought of it as solving your problem. He did not deny it. That was better too. He said, we're scared, Mom. I leaned back in the chair. There it was. The true thing under the ugly thing. Fear. Not poverty. Fear. My son was not starving. His children were not cold. His house was not dark. But he was afraid. Afraid of losing status. Afraid of disappointing Claire. Afraid of admitting that their life was too heavy. Afraid of being seen as a man who made $300,000 and still could not breathe. Fear can make people honest. It can also make them cruel. I believe you are scared, I said. I do not believe fear gave you permission to make a plan for my house. I wasn't going to force you. Force is not always a shove, Nathan. Sometimes it is a son looking worried enough that his mother signs away her peace. His voice broke, but he did not cry the way he had cried as a boy. He held it back, maybe because he knew tears had appeared in the spreadsheet as one more tool. I don't know what to do, he said. For tonight, nothing. Mom, no, you brought me numbers. I am going to review them properly. Are you cutting us off? Cutting us off. Not protecting yourself. Not stopping the money. Cutting us off, as if my retirement had become a waterline into his house. I am going to review the numbers, I said. Good night, Nathan. I hung up before he could put the children in the sentence. Then I washed the dishes. One plate at a time. Warm water. Soap. A towel over my shoulder. There is something holy about ordinary work after betrayal. It reminds your hands that they still know what to do when your heart does not. At 2 a.m, I built my own spreadsheet. I listed every dollar I had given them. Then I listed every discretionary expense their own hidden sheet had revealed. The totals were close enough to make my stomach turn. My support, $64,275. Their visible lifestyle spending, $61,890. Almost the same. While I was helping with school gaps, they were paying for resort weekends. While I was covering property tax emergencies, they were upgrading a car. While I was moving money from the account Robert and I promised not to touch unless necessary, Claire was placing deposits on furniture. That was when I finally cried. Not because of the money alone. Money was part of it, yes. I am not ashamed to say so. Older women are often expected to act as if money is beneath us, as if dignity pays insurance premiums and love replaces roof shingles. It does not. But what broke me was not only the amount, it was the notes. She is lonely. She likes being needed. Mention Dad. They had taken the tenderest parts of my life and placed them in a strategy column. I cried for Robert. Because his name had been used to pressure me. I cried for Nathan. Because the boy we raised had become a man who could type that sentence and still come eat spaghetti at my table. And I cried for myself. Because I had confused being needed with being held close. That is a dangerous mistake for widows. Loneliness can make a phone call sound like purpose. A request can feel like proof that you still matter. A grandchild's bill can become a rope tied around your heart. I had not been stupid. I had been grieving. There is a difference. But grief does not protect your bank account unless you make it. The next morning, I called my financial advisor. Her name is Marcia Bell. Robert and I started seeing her 10 years before he retired. She is younger than me, but she has the expression of a woman who has watched too many families discover greed after a funeral. I sent her the spreadsheet. All of it. She called me back 20 minutes later. Eleanor, she said, I'm going to ask this plainly. Are you being pressured? That word landed differently from her mouth. Pressured. Not family support. Not temporary bridge. Pressure. I was, I said. I am not anymore. Good, she said. Then we protect you now. Protect. I did not realize how badly I needed that word until I heard it. Marcia told me to stop informal transfers immediately. She told me to document everything. She told me not to discuss my assets with Nathan or Claire without another person present. She told me not to explain too much. People who are trying to access your money will turn explanations into negotiations, she said. I wrote that down. Then I called Patricia, my attorney. Patricia is 76, wears red lipstick, and has handled enough estate fights to believe every family has one decent person, one confused person, and one person measuring the furniture before the body is cold. I told her about the hidden tab labeled equity options. She did not gasp. Lawyers do not gasp. They become quiet. Did they directly ask you to sell the house? She asked. Not yet. Good, she said. Then we are early. Early. That word made me sit straighter. We scheduled an appointment. Patricia told me to bring the printed sheets, my bank records, the trust documents Robert and I had made, my will, and any messages requesting money. Then I called my sister Ruth. Everyone needs one person who does not require you to sound balanced. Ruth is 73, widowed twice, sharp as a sewing needle, and has the spiritual gift of saying exactly what everyone else is trying to avoid. She answered the phone and said, "What did he do?" That is the beauty of sisters. No warm-up. I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet. Then she said, "Do you want me calm or useful?" Useful. Good. Print 3 copies, hide one outside the house, and do not sit alone with them again. I almost laughed. Then she said, softer, "I'm coming over." She arrived with coffee, folders, and a face that could have frightened a loan officer. We sat at my kitchen table. I showed her the Mom Strategy tab. She read it without speaking. When she reached, "She is lonely and likes being needed," she removed her glasses. "Oh, Eleanor." That was all. Not advice. Not fury. Just my name, spoken like a hand reaching across the table. "I should have seen it sooner," I said. "No," Ruth said. "They should have been better. Remember that. When someone deceives you, the shame belongs first to the person who made honesty unsafe. That does not mean we learn nothing. It means we stop beating ourselves with the tools they use to rob us." By Sunday, I had a plan. Not revenge the way people usually mean revenge. I did not want to destroy my son. I did not want to humiliate my grandchildren. I did not even want Claire ruined. Though I will admit, there was 1 hour on Thursday afternoon when imagining her mother reading the spreadsheet gave me a wicked little comfort. But wicked comfort is not wisdom. I wanted 3 things. The truth named, the children protected, and my home removed permanently from their financial imagination. So I invited Nathan and Claire to Sunday dinner. When I called, Nathan's voice was careful. "Just us? You, Claire, and the children." A pause. "And Ruth," I added. "Why Aunt Ruth?" "Because I want another adult in the room." He understood then. This was not dinner. This was an accounting. Sunday came cold and clear. I made roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and apple crisp. Some people think making a good meal before a hard conversation is weakness. It is not. It is a way of saying, "I will not let your behavior make me forget mine." They arrived at 5. Nathan looked tired in a new way. Not the dramatic tiredness of a man with an expensive mortgage. The smaller tiredness of someone who had seen himself clearly and did not like the view. Claire looked perfect. That told me she was ready for battle. Perfect hair, soft sweater, diamond studs, a camel coat she did not take off until I asked if she was cold. Her face had been arranged into injured dignity. I had seen that expression before. On school administrators whose payroll mistakes had become emails. Lily hugged me. Caleb ran to the den. Ruth arrived 10 minutes later and kissed the children loudly. We ate first. I insisted. You do not do hard things on an empty stomach if you can help it. Hunger makes people theatrical, and Claire already had enough theatre in her posture. The children talked through dinner. Lily had a spelling test. Caleb wanted to know whether Grandpa Robert could see him from heaven and whether heaven had spaghetti. Claire answered too quickly. Of course, honey, I said. If heaven knows what it's doing, Grandpa has spaghetti, 3 dogs, and a lawnmower that starts on the first pull. Caleb laughed. Nathan looked down at his plate. After dessert, Ruth took the children into the den. Smoothly. No drama. Come on, she said. Aunt Ruth needs someone to explain these dinosaur names before I embarrass myself. When the children were gone, I brought out the folder. Claire's eyes went straight to it. Nathan folded his hands and waited. Good. Waiting was a start. I placed the folder in the center of the table. I'm going to speak first, I said. Then both of you may speak. You will not interrupt me. You will not use the children to avoid the facts. You will not bring Robert's name into this unless you are prepared to honor the way he lived. Claire's eyebrows lifted. That feels a little hostile. No, I said. Hostile was making a strategy document about a widow's loneliness. This is organized. Nathan closed his eyes. Claire's face tightened. She had expected sadness. She had prepared for anger. She had not prepared for structure. I opened the folder. Since Robert died, I have given you $64,275. Nathan flinched. Claire looked at the wall. No, I said gently. Look at the number, both of you. Numbers deserve witnesses. Nathan looked. Claire did too, but slowly. I gave it because I believed the needs were real. Some were. I do not regret helping with the children. But your own hidden sheet shows almost the same amount spent on restaurants, resort weekends, club fees, salon expenses, furniture, a car upgrade, and a vacation deposit. Claire leaned forward. That is wildly out of context. I turned the page toward her. It is your context. I printed it from your sheet. Her mouth hardened. Are we not allowed to have any life at all? There it was. The first defense. A familiar one. The person confronted with excess becomes the victim of deprivation. You are allowed to have a life, I said. You are not allowed to ask me to shrink mine, so yours can keep looking expensive. Nathan looked down again. Claire said, We work very hard. I believe you. We are under pressure. I believe that too. Then why are you acting like we're criminals? I sat back. Because pressure explains why you wanted help. It does not explain why you made a tab about how to use my grief. That stopped her. For a moment. Then she recovered. That was brainstorming. It was private. It was never meant to be read like some formal plan. Ruth, from the doorway, said, Then naming it Mom's strategy was unlucky. I gave Ruth a look. She lifted both hands and disappeared again. Claire's eyes shone, but not with remorse yet. With anger. I feel violated, she said. That sentence almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny. Because it was perfect. You feel violated because I read the hidden pages in a document you sent me while asking for $72,000. It was shared by mistake. No, I said. The mistake was believing I would not know where to look. Nathan spoke then. Claire. Just her name. Low. Warning. She turned on him. Don't Claire me. You helped make it. Good. There it was. Truth. Entering through anger because pride had locked the front door. I looked at Nathan. She is right. He nodded. I know. Claire stared at him, surprised. He kept his eyes on me. I helped make it. I edited it. I added Dad. The room changed. That was the moment. Not the spreadsheet, not the money, not even the house. Dad. Nathan had taken Robert's memory. A man who had saved screws in jars and paid cash for used cars, and turned him into a line of emotional leverage. Dad would want the kids secure. I took that page from the folder. I read the row aloud. Dad would want the kids secure. Nathan's jaw tightened. I said, "Your father wanted the kids loved, fed, educated, safe. He did not want your mother manipulated so two adults could avoid cancelling a vacation." Nathan nodded once. His face had gone pale. Claire said, "That is unfair. You keep making this about vacations. It was about the full picture." "Then let's look at the full picture." I turned to the equity options page. Claire went still. I placed it between them. My house was estimated at $425,000 to $475,000. My attachment to it was listed as high. Consulting an advisor was listed as an obstacle. Selling was to be framed as safety and closeness. Potential contribution, $250,000. I looked at Claire. Then Nathan. "This house is not a potential contribution. This is where your father carried you through the front door. This is where I cared for him after his knee surgery. This is where he died. This is where I still wake up every morning and decide to keep living." The room was silent. I touched the page. "You converted my home into a solution before you had the decency to ask whether I still needed it. For myself." Claire's voice sharpened. "Lots of older people downsize, Eleanor. Acting like the idea itself is evil is dramatic." I smiled then. That bothered her. "I agree. Lots of older people downsize, some happily, some wisely, some because they choose it. But when a daughter-in-law lists a widow's emotional attachment as an obstacle and plans to bring it up after securing monthly payments, that is not downsizing. That is harvesting." Claire looked away. Finally, one word had landed. Harvesting. Some words should be heavy. Nathan whispered, "I am ashamed." I looked at him. Good. He looked up, startled. "Shame is not always useless," I said. "Sometimes it is the smoke alarm. The question is whether you leave the house or take out the batteries." Claire let out a hard breath. "So what now? You punish us? You cut off your grandchildren? You make Nathan choose between his mother and his family." There it was. The children, placed on the table like shields. I leaned forward. "Do not do that again." She blinked. "My grandchildren are not a bargaining chip. If they have real needs, I will help in a way that reaches them directly. But I will not allow you to hold them up every time you do not want to answer for yourself." Nathan turned to Claire. "She's right." Claire's face flushed. "You keep saying that like you weren't sitting beside me making the same plan." "I was," Nathan said. His voice did not shake now. That mattered. "I was wrong." Claire looked genuinely frightened then. Not of me, of losing the agreement that had protected her. For years, Nathan had softened every hard edge for her, smoothed every conflict, explained every excess, absorbed every disappointment. Now he was sitting in my dining room, not attacking her, not abandoning her, but refusing to hide behind her. That frightened her more than my folder ever could. I took out the final papers. "Here is what happens now." Claire lifted her chin, ready to negotiate. There would be no negotiation. "First, I will not give you $3,000 a month. Not for 2 years. Not for 2 months. Not temporarily." Nathan nodded. Claire did not. "Second, informal financial help stops today. No vague emergencies, no transfers, no mortgage gaps, no credit card rescues. If Lily or Caleb has a real need, I will consider paying the school, doctor, or therapist directly, not through either of you." Claire said, "That is controlling." "Yes," I said. She blinked. "It is. I am controlling access to my money because you tried to control access to my guilt." Nathan breathed out through his nose. Almost a laugh, almost pain. "Third, I met with Marcia and Patricia. My trust has been updated. My house cannot be sold, borrowed against, transferred, or placed under anyone else's decision without protections. If I become ill, Ruth and Patricia are involved. Nathan, you are not removed from my life, but you are no longer alone near my assets." Nathan closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. Claire looked stunned. You changed legal documents because of one spreadsheet? No, I said. I changed legal documents because one spreadsheet told me the truth about many conversations. That silenced her. Fourth, I opened education accounts for Lily and Caleb. I made initial deposits. I will contribute when I choose. That money is for their education and their start in life. It is not for your household cash flow. It is not for vacations. It is not for appearances. Nathan's eyes filled, but he held himself steady. Thank you, he said. I nodded. Fifth, the $64,275 already given will not be demanded back today. Claire's shoulders lowered. I watched that carefully. Relief, not remorse. So I continued. But it has been documented. If either of you pressures me again, mentions selling my house, uses the children as messengers, or asks dishonestly, I will treat the full amount as an advance against any future inheritance and adjust my documents accordingly. Claire went pale. Nathan said, That's fair. Claire turned toward him. How can you say that? Because it is. She's humiliating us. No, Nathan said. She is naming what we did. That was the first moment I saw my son step out from behind the life he had built. Not dramatically. No speech. No raised voice. Just one honest sentence. Claire looked at him as if he had betrayed her. Maybe he had. But not all betrayals are wrong. Sometimes a man must betray the lie before he can return to himself. I softened my voice. Claire, I do not hate you. Her eyes snapped back to me. I do not. I think you are afraid. I think you were raised to believe being seen as ordinary is a kind of death. I think you built a life that photographs well and does not balance. I think you love your children, but you are teaching them that comfort matters more than honesty. Her eyes filled again. This time the tears were quieter. Better. I also think you looked at me and saw extra. Extra room, extra time, extra money, extra house, extra grandmother. And I am telling you now, before you teach Lily to do this to herself, or Caleb to do this to someone else, I am not extra. Claire looked down. For the first time, she had no answer. That was not forgiveness. It was a beginning. Nathan placed both hands flat on the table. I used Dad, he said. His voice was low. I wrote that line because I knew it would work. I did not move. He needed to say it without being rescued. I knew if I said Dad would want the kids secure, you would hear him. I knew that, and I used it. The room seemed to breathe around us. I felt Robert there then. Not like a ghost, like memory with weight. The man who had sat at this table with the green notebook. The man who had taught Nathan wants and needs. The man whose name had been turned into a tool. My voice was not as steady when I answered. Yes, you did. Nathan's eyes were wet, but he did not collapse into tears. That was good. This was not a moment for him to become the child and force me back into mothering. This was a moment for him to remain a man. I am sorry, he said, not for getting caught, not for the wording, for becoming someone who could do that. That was the first apology I accepted. Not fully, but I let it enter the room. I believe you, I said. Now become someone else. He nodded. Claire whispered, What do you want from us? That was the first useful question she had asked all evening. I want you to build a budget that does not include me. I want you to tell your children no when the answer is no. I want the club cancelled before you ask anyone for help. I want the vacation cancelled before you say the word emergency. I want you to stop confusing embarrassment with danger. Claire flinched. Good. And I want both of you to remember this. Comfort purchased with someone else's security is not comfort. It is theft with good lighting. Ruth made a noise from the hallway. I ignored her. Claire looked at me for a long time. Then she said, very softly, I don't know how to live like that. It was the most honest thing she had ever said to me. Not noble, not pretty, honest. I nodded. Then learn before your children believe the same thing. That ended the conversation. Not with hugs, not with music, not with everyone suddenly understanding. Real life rarely gives you clean endings at the table. Nathan and Claire left with the children around 8. Lily hugged me longer than usual. "Are you and Dad okay?" she whispered. I brushed her hair back. We had a serious talk. Was he in trouble? I glanced at Nathan by the door. He looked at his daughter and answered before I could. "Yes," he said. "I was, and Grandma helped me see it." That mattered. He did not say we were all just upset. He did not make fog. He gave his child a small, clean truth. Lily nodded, with the solemn wisdom of 10 years old. "Caleb used permanent marker once," she said. "That was serious too." "Yes," I said. "Some marks take longer to clean." After they left, Ruth and I sat at the table. The folder lay between us. She poured coffee. "Well," she said, "Robert would have liked the part about theft with good lighting." I laughed. A real laugh. Then I cried. Only then. Because I had held myself together long enough to protect myself. And now my body wanted to know if it was safe to shake. Ruth moved beside me and put her arm around my shoulders. Sisters know when not to speak. The next morning, I walked through my house, slowly. The hallway. The pantry door with Nathan's height marks. The living room where Robert had fallen asleep during football games. The kitchen where the green notebook used to sit. The back porch where he drank coffee in summer. The bedroom where I still slept on my side of the bed, though the other side had been empty for more than a year. Equity option. No. Home. Mine. I stood at the front door and looked at the lock. Robert had installed it himself after a neighbour's garage was broken into. He had tested it 3 times, then handed me the spare key and said, "A woman should always know what opens her door." I knew what opened it. Now I knew what could close it too. The months after that dinner were not easy. I will not lie to you and pretend one folder fixed a family. That is not how families work. The truth is only the beginning. After truth comes discomfort. After discomfort comes behavior. After behavior, if it lasts long enough, trust may begin to grow back in small, cautious places. Nathan and Claire sold 1 car. They cancelled the Street Lucia trip. The country club trial disappeared. Claire stopped posting for almost 6 weeks, which in her world may have counted as a silent retreat. Nathan found a credit counselor through his employer. The first time he told me, he sounded embarrassed. "Good," I said. Just that. Good. Adults do not need applause for cleaning up messes they made, but they do need to know when a step is in the right direction. He began sending me a monthly budget. I did not ask him to. He said he needed someone honest to see it. The first one was still a mess. Too much dining out, too many subscriptions, too much money vanishing into convenience. I marked it up in red pen and mailed it back. He called 2 days later. "Mom, did you actually use red pen?" "Yes." It felt aggressive. "Nathan, numbers are not aggressive. They are just tired of being ignored." He laughed. Not the nervous laugh. A clean one. That gave me hope. Not trust yet. Hope. Claire was harder. For a while, she treated me like a locked door she had once expected to open automatically. Polite, cool, careful. "Thank you for having the children." The kids enjoyed dinner. "We appreciate the school account." I did not chase warmth from her. Before the spreadsheet, I would have tried. I would have complimented her sweater, asked about her work, sent extra leftovers, proved I was not judging, made myself softer so she would not feel uncomfortable around me. After the spreadsheet, I stopped auditioning. That may be the greatest freedom old age gives a woman if she is brave enough to accept it. You can stop auditioning for approval, for inclusion, for softness, for a place at a table you helped buy. I was Nathan's mother. I was Lily and Caleb's grandmother. I was Robert's widow. I was Eleanor Whitaker. Those titles did not require Claire's permission. The children still came every other Saturday. That was my agreement with Nathan. Not free childcare, not a guilt payment, a relationship. Direct. I learned to love that word. Direct payments, direct conversations, direct boundaries, direct love. We made pancakes. We planted basil in Robert's old garden. Lily learned to use the adding machine I had kept from the payroll office, the one with a paper roll. She loved pressing the buttons and watching numbers appear in ink. One afternoon, she asked, "Grandma, why do you write money stuff down?" I thought carefully. Children deserve the truth in a size they can carry. Because money tells a story, I said. And if you don't pay attention, someone else may tell the story for you. Like lying. Sometimes. Sometimes like pretending. She frowned. Which is worse? I smiled sadly. Pretending. It usually takes longer to notice. She nodded, though I am not sure she understood. Someday she will. That is the sorrow of being a grandmother. You plant lessons that may not bloom until after the world has already charged them tuition. In March, Nathan came over alone. He called first. That mattered. He brought an envelope and placed it on the kitchen table. "What is this?" I asked. "First repayment." I did not touch it right away. "Nathan, I told you I was not demanding repayment now." "I know. This is not because you demanded it. This is because I need to become a man who pays back what he took." Inside was a check for $500. Not a grand gesture. Not impressive against $64,275, but honest. He had sold some golf equipment online. I accepted it. Not because I needed the $500, because he needed to hand it to me. "Thank you," I said. He sat across from me, in the same chair where he had opened the laptop. He looked smaller now, not weaker, more correctly sized. "I keep thinking about Dad," he said. "So do I. He would be disgusted with me." "No," I said. Nathan looked up. "He would be disappointed. There is a difference." His eyes filled. Disgust closes a door. Disappointment leaves one open, but makes you walk through it properly. He nodded. Then he said the sentence I had needed to hear, though I had not known I was waiting for it. "I treated you like you were extra." I said nothing. He continued. "Extra money, extra house, extra time, extra love. Like because Dad was gone and my life was bigger and louder, yours had become smaller and easier to take from." There it was. Not stress. Not Claire. Not bad wording. The wound named correctly. I reached across the table and took his hand. "Yes," I said, "you did." He did not cry hard. He did not make me comfort him. He just held my hand and accepted the weight of the truth. That was when repair began. Not forgiveness. Repair. They are cousins, not twins. Claire's true apology came later, and not at my house. It was at Lily's spring concert. I had paid for Lily's violin rental directly through the school after Nathan sent me the invoice and asked, correctly, whether I wanted to contribute. No emotional language. No mention of Robert, no pressure, just the bill and the purpose. Progress is often boring. Do not underestimate boring progress. I arrived early and found a seat near the aisle. Claire came in alone. Nathan was parking with Caleb. She saw me, hesitated, then sat beside me. For a while, we watched children climb onto the stage, carrying instruments like fragile weapons. Then Claire said, "I owe you an apology that does not defend itself." That was a good opening. I kept my eyes on the stage. "Yes, you do." She breathed in. "I am sorry for the spreadsheet. I am sorry for the notes. I am sorry for thinking about your house like money before thinking about it as your home. And I am sorry for writing down your loneliness as something we could use." That last part mattered. I turned to her. Her face looked different. Still beautiful, still Claire, but less arranged. "My mother did that," she said quietly. I waited. She treated comfort like proof of love. My father paid for everything. If she was embarrassed, he bought something. If she felt ignored, he planned a trip. If she was afraid people would think we were slipping, he upgraded the kitchen. On stage, Lily adjusted her violin. Claire watched her. I think I learnt that if life looks good, it means you are safe. That is a hard lesson to unlearn, I said. She nodded. I don't want Lily to become me. There it was. The beginning. Not a perfect apology, not a movie moment, but a woman seeing the inheritance she had received and fearing she might pass it on. That, I said, is a good place to start. She wiped her eye quickly. Then she said, I also cancelled the furniture order. I looked at her. That must have hurt. She gave a small, embarrassed laugh. More than I want to admit. Good, I said. She looked surprised. Pain is not always harm, I said. Sometimes it is just the feeling of a want being told no. For the first time in a long while, Claire smiled at me without performing. Small, real, allowed to count. A year has passed since the birthday dinner. I still live in my house. Let me say that again, for the people in the back of my own family who had started imagining my address as a future deposit. I still live in my house. The pantry marks are still there. Robert's shed still smells like sawdust and oil. His coffee mug is in the cabinet now, not beside the machine. I moved it one morning when I realized grief does not need a shrine to remain loyal. Sometimes I use it when I need courage. The green notebook is back in the drawer beside the stove. I use spreadsheets too, of course. I am not trying to become a museum exhibit. But the notebook has Robert's handwriting in the early pages, and sometimes I like seeing how he wrote mortgage with a little slant, like even the bills had somewhere to go. Nathan and Claire are not magically fixed. No one is. They still have too much house. They still struggle with wanting to look more secure than they feel. Claire still likes expensive things. Nathan still has to practice saying no before it comes naturally. But the second car is gone. The club is gone. The vacation was cancelled. The credit cards are being paid down. Nathan sends repayment when he can. Sometimes $500, sometimes $200. 1 month nothing, with a note that said, emergency fund first, like Dad would say. That one made me cry in the good way. The children's accounts grow slowly. I pay for Lily's violin directly. I pay Caleb's therapy provider directly when needed. I do not give money through guilt anymore. Directly. There is peace in that word. Claire and I are careful with each other. That is all right. Not every relationship needs to become warm to become honest. Some relationships improve simply by removing the lies and letting the silence be clean. On my birthday this year, Claire brought me flowers. Not roses from a delivery service. Grocery store tulips, still in the plastic. She looked almost embarrassed. I know you like simple things, she said. I took them. Then I corrected her gently. I like honest things. She nodded. I'm learning the difference. I placed them in Robert's old water pitcher and set them on the table. They looked beautiful there. Not because they were simple, because nobody had pretended they were anything else. That evening, Nathan helped me take the trash bins to the curb. He had not done that without being asked since he was 16. As we walked back up the driveway, he stopped and looked at the porch light Robert had installed 20 years ago. It still flickers when the weather is cold. I'm sorry about the house sheet, he said. You have said that. I know. I think I will be saying it in different ways for a long time. That was a good answer. I looked at my house. The windows glowed warm. The front step had a crack Robert always meant to fix. The hydrangeas were bare for winter. Everything looked ordinary. And sacred. This house may be yours someday, I said. Or it may not. But either way, remember this, it is mine first. Nathan nodded. I know that now. We stood there in the blue evening, mother and son, both humbled by the same sheet of numbers. Then he said, Mom? Yes? When I said we were barely getting by on $300K, did you want to slap me? I looked at him. He was serious. No, I said. He seemed relieved. I wanted your father to appear behind you and ask which was yelling louder, your want or your need. Nathan laughed. Then he covered his eyes for a second. The dead are still teaching the living. The living are slow students. Here is what I know now. Helping your adult children can be a beautiful thing. There is nothing wrong with generosity. There is nothing weak about being a mother who shows up. If my grandchildren are hungry, I will feed them. If they need shoes, I will buy them. If they need safety, my door opens. But love is not a blank check. Motherhood is not a lifetime subscription service. And being widowed does not turn your life into extra space for other people's emergencies. There comes a moment when helping without truth becomes participation in the lie. There comes a moment when silence teaches people that your peace is available for withdrawal. There comes a moment when you have to stop proving your love by making yourself smaller. I wish Nathan had come to me honestly. I wish he had said, "Mom, I am in trouble because I built a life I cannot afford." I wish Claire had learned earlier that being ordinary will not kill her. I wish Robert had been at that table to place one hand on the green notebook and ask our son whether he was answering a want or a need. But wishes do not balance books. Truth does. So if someone you love tells you they are barely getting by, listen. Then ask for the numbers. Not because you are cold, because clarity is kindness too. And if they send you a shared expense sheet, open every tab, especially the hidden ones. Because sometimes the story is not in the column they show you. Sometimes it is in the sheet named after your house. Sometimes it is in the note they thought you were too old to find. And sometimes the calmest revenge is not shouting, not cutting everyone off, not burning the family down. Sometimes it is closing the laptop, printing the truth, calling your advisor, protecting your home, feeding your grandchildren, and teaching your grown son that his mother is not extra. She is not an equity option. She is not a temporary bridge. She is not a strategy. She is not lonely, money waiting to be moved. She is a woman who built a life dollar by dollar, loved harder than she should have, noticed more than they thought she could, and finally remembered that the house with her name on the deed also came with a door, and she still knows how to lock it.